Devotional time together. Uh, my name is Aaron Sprunger, and I'm the pastor at Albany First Church of God, and we welcome you to tonight's live broadcast. And I just want you to feel at home, but because I'm thinking that maybe where you're at is right there in your home. Some of you won't see this until tomorrow or whenever the opportunity arises that you can see it. But tonight, I just want to continue the sharing that I had started earlier, and that is on the names of God. And tonight, we're going to take on another name that the was given to God, or that He was known by the children of Israel. So anyway, I'll just start off here. This name tonight is from EL-ELYON, which is the God Most High. In other words, the highest God there is. He is, and I love what this says, He is sovereign God in whom we can put our trust. I don't know whether all of you have that understanding of the meaning of the word sovereign, or what that correlates to today. I'm not even sure that today we even think about sovereign. We may talk about a sovereign nation. In other words, a nation that is able to maintain and that it has its own power and its own strength and all. But this is a little bit different. He is the sovereign God. In other words, He is the highest God that there is. There's no other gods that are greater than Him. And I know this sounds a little bit close to what I shared the other night about uh, He's separate or distinct from other false gods. This is this is saying that it isn't a matter of even the false god. He is the God of gods. In other words, there's no other big G God in existence. Whenever you understand what he is called here, and here again, I think that we many times don't realize, or we don't place that emphasis on the God who is, that He always has been, always will be. He was sovereign from the beginning, even until now. So how can we possibly think that He is anything less than the Creator, the one who sustains all life? You think about that for just a little bit, and it wasn't until I was in high school. Well, I was past high school, I was in college, and we had a science class, and I we talked about a lot of different things about the makeup of cells and everything else. And and as I begin to think about all of that in relationship to, um, you know, every little cell has a proton, neutron, and so on, and there's something that holds that all together. And what happens whenever we um, devise a nuclear explosion is whenever that deal separates. In other words, that nucleus with the protons and all going around, and there's a bond that was created by our Maker, and that is God. And He saw the very smallest part of who we are. In other words, there are all these cells in our body. There are different kinds of cells, but each cell is made up of this, and so as a result, it is that cohesion that keeps that all together. And I thought, I don't know how God's going to end this world. I don't know how, it says that it'll burn with a fervent heat and Revelations and but I'm sitting there thinking, is it possible that God will just release this bond that holds everything together, and it's just one huge explosion of fire that because it's the world, well, not even the world. I mean, it's the biggest explosion that could possibly happen just because God released that to happen. It's mind blowing to even think about that. But you know, God designed everything. He put everything together. There isn't anything that we can even begin to fathom. Oh, we have understandings. We have, uh, you know, uh, I'm trying to think of the. It's not binoculars, so anyway, but we can look down at something so small that we can't even detect it with our eyes, except for having the right magnification to be able to see that. And we, this is just how great God is. This is how huge. I know we want to think of God as huge, but yet still he sees us in our smallness, and he loves us. He loves everything about us. He loves each cell that he knit together, and he brought you together through the process of fertilization of an egg, and you just continue to grow from that. And so we have a God that fully understands everything about us. And I, tonight, I just want us to think about that just a little bit, because in our daily lives, do you think about whether or not your cell's gonna regenerate? Yesterday, I I thank God for this. I was able to get my windshield wipers working on my expedition. What had happened was one of the bushings that was in the um, armature and the regulator in there, it popped out because it had gotten worn down and rusty, and it popped out of place. And so I'm one of these guys that I have just always worked on my own vehicles, and I like to do that and enjoy it. Um, Maybe not so much now after my stroke, because there's been some challenges there that I didn't realize I would have. But I had gotten the parts, and I'd been putting it off, and I just thought, it's just going to take, too much time, and I just kept on putting it off. So finally yesterday I decided I'm going to get this going. I'm going to make it work. And so I did. I took everything apart, put in the new bushings, got it all put together, and I went to try and put it back into that track that holds that whole piece in there. And it's right there at the cowl of the windshield, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it in. And so Cindy finally came out after I was long past due for lunch. And she said, "Why don't you come in and eat and just let your mind, relax. You'll get it." And so I went back in, and I sat down and started eating lunch, and was just sitting there, and I'd finished my lunch and was drinking some water, and I went, I had it backwards. And what I didn't realize that in my mind, I thought I was putting it in the wrong direction. I needed to come from the other way and then work its way underneath the frame of the body right there. Uh, Alas and no, it wasn't it. I ended up, I popped the one off and I tried to get it in because it was apart whenever I pulled it out, and so I pulled it out basically in uh, two parts, and so as a result, I thought, well, if I pop those off, I can get it back in. Well, I couldn't get it back in, and then I realized, oh, I got the arms backwards that do the windshield wipers. And so I popped the main bar off and put it back in place and was able to get it right back in there and set in place without too much work. And so by about five, well, it's a little later than that, but around 5:30, I had it back in place and I tested it to make sure they did together and nothing was hung up. So took me a little bit longer to get all the other pieces put into place and the cowling back up there and in place. And I was just rejoicing over that. But the thing is, God is sovereign. He knit you together in your mother's womb, and He understands all these things that cause our minds to to stumble and fall, and yet He is sovereign. He always has been. There's never a time whenever God scratched His head, unless He's scratched it at me, going, "What is He doing?" Um, but God knows. He knew who I was and how I would be wired together, and the way that I would think and the way that I would process things. He knew that full well. And you know, this is a God that He is completely over any other God. There's no other God that can possibly come near who He is. We can put our trust in El-ELYON. Because, why? He has supremacy over all other false gods. He has supremacy over all of the universe. And, you know, there's no other gods before Him. Um, let's look in Revelations real quick. And over in the 19th chapter of Revelations, there's a verse there that I think that you guys have probably heard this in a song at one time or another, some place. And there was a guy that was named Handel, was his family name. Um, and he wrote a big musical called The Messiah. And in this, over in Revelations, the 19th chapter, verse 16, we find that there was a thing that was happening that John was seeing, that was taking place in his vision of things that were to come or things that were. And it says in verse 16, it says, on his robe and on his thigh, he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This is what is best way that we could possibly translate this name, EL-ELYON. This is the best way that we can possibly translate this, is that he is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Melchizedek, let me just talk a little bit about Melchizedek, because Melchizedek was an individual who claimed his priesthood not from the lineage of Levi, but his claim was directly from God. And you would say, well, yeah, everybody's called by God, but all the priests should have been called by God. No, Melchizedek's was different. He was given the authority from God. And it was not like any other man's relationship with God, because he had a connection between him and God. Anyway, it was Melchizedek who came and anointed Abram. Melchizedek, it says here that the king of Salem, and if you don't know what that means, the king of Salem is where they come up with the word Jerusalem. And that's our state capital, but I'm not thinking that everything that happens there is always godly. But anyway, and the priest of God Most High referred to God as EL-ELYON 3 times as he blessed Abram. And he was Abram at this time. He later on takes on the name Abraham, or father of many. And he was considered father then, but he became father of many. And, with this blessing, this was directly calling Abram to God. And as a result, he was a pagan before this. And he turned his life around to follow the leading of the God that Melchizedek talked to him about. There's another verse that I want us to share tonight, and it's found in Acts, the 16th chapter, and I just want to read that for you as well. This was whenever Paul and Silas were going about teaching and preaching and doing everything they could to promote Jesus Christ as the good news, the good hope for the people. Once, down in verse 16 of the 16th chapter of Acts, once when we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune telling. She followed Paul and the rest of us, shouting, "These men are servants of the Most High God, who are telling you the way to be saved. And this young lady just, she had another spirit. And this isn't strange that this happened like this, because there was other times, even whenever Jesus was walking, that other demons and other people came up. He's the Son of God. He's the Son of God. And because the demons can't not acknowledge who Jesus was. And in the same turn here, the demons are saying, these people are servants of the Most High God who are telling you the way to be saved. The Most High God, that is this name. Now, I'm sure that whatever name she was referring to, from whatever language, or it could have even been possibly Hebrew, I don't know. But the words that she was saying was that they were the ones who were servants of the Most High God. Most High God. I just think about all of that even today, and how loosely individuals use God's name. This isn't just a God with a little g. This is the Most High God. There, you may say that there's a God, there's a God, there's a God, but this is the Most High, the God over all things. And just as I said before, from Handel's Messiah, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, this is who God is. He is above all. He is above anything on this earth. And he sees it full well. And these other gods they can't even tell anything other than the truth about who God is. Sovereign. God is sovereign. What does that mean to you tonight? As you've had a chance to listen to this a little bit, and some of these scriptures that point these things out, who is God to you? Is he the one that you yearn to give witness of to your friends, to your neighbors? Why was Paul so dedicated? I know I talked a little bit about this on Sunday as well, but why was Paul so dedicated? He even went so far as to say that I'm out of my mind to serve Jesus. I can't even begin to comprehend this Jesus and who he is, and how great he is, and how much he loves, and how much he cares, and all of this. Paul's saying it's beyond even anything that I can contain. It has to come out from me, because I love Jesus. Is God coming out of us, out of me? Is he coming out of you? Is he the the thing that you want to talk about with everyone you come into contact with? I'm not I'm not talking about thumping a Bible over somebody's head. And I'm talking about that is what reigns inside, that God is sovereign in your life. In other words, that he is the supreme ruler of your life. Or is this thing that we talk about as far as following God just a club to be a part of? Just to make sure that you have your membership card punched, and that you show up on a regular basis, and yeah, I talk to God sometimes. Yeah, I do. I visit with Him sometimes, and especially if I have some problems. I think He helps me with my problems, and I think He does. I think He can do some great things. That's the God above all gods. I I can't emphasize that enough. He is the God that created you down to the smallest part of you, down to where those skin cells that you're not sure is ever going to grow back. You see my story with the working on the vehicle ended up costing me some skin cells because I missed my ladder and I came down and peeled back skin on both shins. God knew every cell that came off of me. Do you understand that? He knew my frustration, what I was doing while I was working. He also took care of me, kept me from being injured more. God cares. He loves so much. He loves so much. And He's such a great God that He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die on a cross so that you would have salvation from not His sins, so you could know salvation for your sins. That's the God who is El-ELYON. Are you living that way? Is your life that way? Is it real to you tonight? I've sung that Hallelujah chorus before with a very great choir. And it just thrills my heart to hear that music over and over again because He is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You know what? He's king over Corona 19. And I can put my faith and trust into Him to take care of me. And I pray that tonight you will take time to make sure that you understand who He is and that you're willing to daily put your hand in His and allow Him to guide you to where He wants you to be. Most High God, grace and peace.